Hi, you're listening to another episode of On the Payroll, where I talk to my guests about leadership, project management, project delivery, Salesforce, and things like that. Today, I speak to Gemma Blezard, and it is a raw and eye-opening episode because Gemma has terminal cancer, and so we talk about what that means for her. She is the founder and she runs the Architect Club. She is a single mother and she's an amazing woman, and this was a difficult episode to record, but she wanted it. She wanted to be able to talk candidly about the things that was important in life, and that's what we did here. I hope you enjoy listening to the podcast and that you're able to see the amazing things that are beautiful in life, and you get to appreciate that a little bit more. Thank you. Hello, Gemma. Welcome to an episode of my podcast called On the Payroll. I feel really blessed and fortunate that we're able to connect to do this because it's been a while. How are you feeling today?
Yeah, I'm feeling really good, thank you. And thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to doing this for a while.
Yeah, I think we were both kind of in the ecosystem for quite a long time. I've heard a lot about you, and I keep thinking we need to have a virtual coffee. And that was when we actually, I don't know why, there's something, I was quite shy to approach you because you were this amazing person who, released all this free training guides on Salesforce and things like that. And I was just a bit starstruck, going like, I can't approach her. And then when you did the talk at London's Calling on the Salesforce Architects, different types and the different roles they played, I thought, oh, that's an opportunity for me to kind of slide in a message and say hi. And I think that was when we first connected, and we've exchanged messages since. But I'm really interested to hear your story, and this is what I ask everyone, is just tell me the story of how you got to where you are today. You can start anywhere. You can focus just on Salesforce. You don't have to, because all the experiences that we gain builds a picture, builds the person that we are today. So I'd really love it if you can tell me your story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I know exactly how you feel, because when I first started getting involved in the community, I was pretty starstruck. There were some big names out there that I knew of, who I now consider to be really close friends. So yeah, I completely get that. I guess I could just start by saying that when I came out of education, age 21, I'd done a degree that I'd wanted to use. It wasn't my top subject at A-level when I was 18. My top subject was actually English, followed by sociology, followed by IT. But I made a conscious choice that I wanted to study for a degree that would help me get into a space, an industry that I was interested in, which was technology. And I thought I can always do an English degree in the future if I want to. Sitting around reading books sounds like a fantastic retirement for me. Sadly that probably isn't going to happen now, but I'm still grateful for the chance that I had to do that. So anyway, when I came out of university, my plan was to kind of work my way up towards being a project manager. Now I couldn't think of a worse job for me to do. I was a project manager for 1.5 years and I hated it. It just wasn't for me. I'm an ideas person. I'm not always as organised as people think I am, which is why when I wrote my course, my free course, I sat and planned the structure very meticulously, because I thought if I don't have this spreadsheet leading me down the right route, it's going to be a really bad course. So yeah, but I fell into Salesforce because I'd spent 2 years sort of after university working in a data role. So my role was to write SQL queries and to present data in a easily consumable format for a local exam board and things like that. So my interest was in data, and I got a job at D&B, Dun & Bradstreet, looking after sort of 250 salespeople on the sales floor. And they said, you're going into sales ops. Your job is to make sure that people are complying with the rules on pipelines, and you'll be loading in data in and out. And we're early adopters of this thing called Salesforce. And I was like, oh, what's this Salesforce thing? So they sent me off to a conference, which was called Dreamforce Europe. And this was 2008. And it was at the Barbican, which is like, if you've ever been to the Barbican in London, it's this brutalist architectural building. It's absolutely horrible. And the venue was so hot that day. And the conference was way too big for the venue, even then. But I left feeling very inspired. I'd been to workshops and learned about workflow rules and automation, and I remember Mark Benioff sat on the stage with Jimmy Wales, who had founded Wikipedia, and I was like, wow, how did he get Jimmy Wales? And Peter Gabriel's came on stage and started playing his guitar. And I was like, wow, okay, this is interesting. This is something different. I didn't even know what a keynote was. I was in my early 20s and very new to this sort of thing. But in that day, I left feeling like, this is an interesting system. I love the fact you don't have to install it on someone's computer. And the first time I logged into Salesforce was about 3 days later, when I used the API to log in and manipulate some data live in the system. So I learned through the back door, if that makes sense. I learned because of my database background, I was able to understand that Salesforce was a posh database in the sky, was what I called it. And then suddenly it was called the cloud. And I worked as an admin for sort of 18 months, loved it, loved the system, wanted to do more with it. As a people person, it was an ideal role for me because everybody always needed help with running reports and understanding best practices and routes. And my job was to make sure everybody's Outlook was connected. And, I was the face of Salesforce for that role. But it wasn't enough for me. I wanted to do more, and I wanted to help more customers with it. I wanted to do different things, and I really thrive on variety. So the idea of working with multiple companies across multiple industries and learning as much as I could about each of those industries while I was there led me into a consulting role. And I did that so I started that in 2009-10. My first client was Woburn Abbey. It was the weddings and the wedding inquiries. So if any of you have ever heard about Woburn and their weddings, they've got beautiful venue that the Duke of Bedford rents out for people to get married in. And they wanted Salesforce for lead capture. And from then on, I was kind of hooked. And my appetite, my hunger to work on bigger projects, to work on more complex solutions, and to really push and bend Salesforce as far as it would go, really grew from that. And I went from sort of boutique consultancy roles to working for myself, to working at Financial Force for 3.5 years and becoming an expert on their PSA, professional services automation tool, before landing at Blue Wolf. And that was where I found my home, really. It was a really great environment for people to thrive. Their enablement programs were absolutely beautiful. Like, I'd never been taught how to consult. And then the first week, I just learned it on the job and learned it, drew on my own skill set. And then I found myself at the induction in Prague, and they were telling us like how to whiteboard, what symbols to use, how not to accidentally draw appendages on stick people, which happens so many times in meetings. And, it was just interesting, and really, it was the right environment for me. And in that environment, I had a great boss who believed in me. I got some certifications, some extra certifications. So I didn't mention all the certs, but I started getting certified pretty much straight away in 2008. And then as Salesforce released more certifications, I did miss some while I was at Financial Force, but then at Blue Wolf, I found myself on the bench and ploughed through the Architect certs, and my boss and I had a one-to-one, and he said, I think you could do the CTA. And I was like, the Certified Technical Architect. And I was like, no, that's something other people do. I'm not really interested in that, because I don't want to learn to code, frankly. I mean, I've been writing design specs for coding for years and years and years before Flow was invested in as heavily as it has been in the last few years. If you wanted to automate anything fancy, you had to do it in code. So I was very used to speccing out code, but I didn't want to write it. No way. It's just not my thing. I'm more of a facilitator. I'm the one that understands the requirements and the vision and tries to keep everyone true to that vision and gives direction to developers and junior consultants and things like that. So I loved all that. But in the end, because I think my boss said to me, well, you only have to pass PD1, you have to understand how to code. You have to understand what good and bad code looks like. He said, can you do that? I was like, yeah, I can read through an Apex class and go, ooh, why are you doing that? And he said, right, well, and I was like, yeah, okay. I went away that night, thought about it, came in the next day and said, you've lit a fire under my ass now. I'm going to have to go and do it. And it became like a Forrest Gump journey. It was like, well, I figured I got this far, I better keep running. So I just kept going and I started preparing for my CTA. But then I was interrupted quite heavily by my sort of second cancer diagnosis by that point. I know I'm skipping around a bit, but and that scuppered it. And it made me think, actually, the effect that studying for the CTA had on myself, my stress levels, my mental health, my family. I didn't really want to put myself or my family through that 6 months of intense study and not being able to do things with my family and leaving diagrams lying around the house. I was just like, I can't, it's too much. I can't deal with that and the cancer at the same time. So I dropped it, and I still have no plans to pick it up again, but I have a lot of encouragement for those people who do. Anyway, you asked me about my journey and I just went off on one, so apologies, that is me, but I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it took you all the way to, kind of blue, but, there's still some parts of your journey you haven't finished, and you're told, even though you've decided not to get onto the certified track, you are still very passionate about this particular aspect of Salesforce. I mean, you founded Ladies Be Architect, and your company has the word architect in it. So just talk me through about, how you went from being employed at I would say, fairly secure role to the world of running your own business.
Yeah. You're right, it was a very secure world, but as you say, as you spotted, it's about that passion. And I worked very hard with two wonderful gentlemen, Andrew Hart and Jason Guthrie. Jason is based in Tennessee, Andrew is based here in the UK, and they were kind of US-UK counterparts, if you like. They ran the Architects team. And I spent a lot of time talking with them both about what is the role of an architect, and how do we create a career path for consultants who want to become delivery leaders and don't want to go into management. So I always felt that was missing from the consultancy path. If you worked for an SI partner or an ISV partner, consulting partner or an app exchange partner, where do you go? If you've been delivering consultancy, do you just carry on being a consultant and then go into management, because that's how you get more senior and that's how you get more money? And I felt that what was missing was a real career track for delivery and technical professionals that took them up into a senior role. And IBM was actually a big inspiration for that, because IBM has its Distinguished Engineer program, whereby there's kind of two tracks that you can follow. At IBM, you can go down the Distinguished Engineer, which is like the pinnacle, if you like, it's like the equivalent of a CTA. And that gets you up into executive levels. So you can still become an executive without becoming a manager or a director. You are recognized as a subject matter expert in your field. You're pulled in to do pre-sales. You're pulled in to help with projects, and you're an escalation point from a technical and delivery perspective, and you're recognised as having that executive presence and that executive role, versus the management role where you've got a lot more responsibility. The responsibilities are different, right? You've got a lot of responsibility in both tracks, but on management side, it's more about dealing with people and problems and all of those sort of things. Who really wants to do that? Lots of people, but not me. So I was really interested in that career track, and I felt it was really missing for the Salesforce ecosystem. It was consultancy, and then architects were basically developers, or everybody thought an architect was a developer. But also what I saw and noticed was a lot of failing projects because there was a lack of delivery leadership layer in there. Or that delivery leadership layer was kind of that there were politics or several people with the same skills who were kind of almost bum fighting over that role, if you like who's responsible for the design, who's responsible for making sure that design is scalable. And there are a lot of practices in the ecosystem where people are putting in solutions that basically just meet one requirement, done, tick, done, move on to the next one. And what was missing was cohesion in the actual solution itself. If I build this field here, what's the impact on the integration? What's the impact on data migration? Do I have to go and make that data up from somewhere when I push it in? And the big picture was missing. The big picture view was missing. So I had a lot of discussions with Andrew and Jason about this, and we were talking about what are the different roles and contributions that architects can bring to a project, and how do we translate that into a career path for senior delivery people. And while that conversation was going on, I was doing certs, and I went into the Architect Success group in the community online, and it was a lovely message board full of lots of messages, but I was also very intimidated by it because it was a lot of men posting, and a lot of men posting very technical topics. And I thought, gosh, if I write anything, I mean, I know what he's talking about and I have a view on it, but if I write anything, I'm just going to get shot down. Like, what do you know? So I thought to myself, okay, there's just lots of people in here talking about codey things. Is there anyone here that wants to study for certifications? And plus, where are all the girls? So there were barely any women posting in there. So Ladies Be Architects started as, I was like, if there aren't any here, I'm just going to create my own community. So I created a group, and I just called it Ladies Be Architects, and invited 14 people, and then just started posting and thought, well, I'd rather this wasn't just a message board. I'd rather actually that this became a place of active learning where people can share topics, they can have study groups, and actually one of the best ways you can learn is to teach. So why don't I just start by doing a monthly webinar, pick one topic from one certification and go into it in a bit of depth. So I did a recording of enterprise territory management, and I wanted to encourage more women to come and replace me as a speaker and a presenter, and actually everybody get a chance to refine those skills so that they can learn better. And that was how I met Charlie. And then that was how I met Susanna, because Charlie was really interested in OAuth, and Susanna was really interested in she was learning to code at the time.
What's your full name? Sorry.
Susanna St. Germain, who's now an architect evangelist at Salesforce. So I was very proud of that. She was on stage with Parker at the very first Architect keynote. I was sat there in tears watching it go, oh, Susanna, I'm so proud of you. Yeah, and Charlie became an MVP. And
Charlie who?
Charlie Prinsloo. So she's based in Texas, lovely South African lady in Texas, with a warm heart and soul. And so she came on and presented about OAuth. And the thing that all three of us had in common is that we took these very technical topics and we broke them down and we explained them in a way that would make sense to someone on the ground that perhaps was a bit intimidated by the language in the training. When I started Salesforce, there was no Trailhead. And even then, back 4 years ago, there wasn't much content on Trailhead that would help to understand. A lot of it was written with the assumption that you already knew the development terms. Like, what's a constructor? I was like, I've got no bloody idea what a constructor is. So I'm Googling everything. And, you know, so being able to break down the terminology, help people understand it better, and then build it back up and put it back in, wrap it back up in the technical language was actually helping people to learn better. And I took a new concept to Dreamforce, which was to actually do a practical workshop. So instead of standing there lecturing people, We had a less than ideal room, but we split everybody into groups, gave them a scenario, gave them all responsibility, an area of responsibility, and they all had to then feed back to the group what their design was going to be, and they got to critique each other. So that became our solution design workshop. And then the following year, Salesforce said, right, we're going to have an architect area and we're going to hold workshops in there. So it just kind of went from there, it just blossomed, and Salesforce really got on board and got involved. It was the Trailhead team in San Francisco. And they opened the door for us. They gave us the space and the platform to really start sharing these ideas. And then I started doing some talks around thought leadership, around the topics that Andrew and Jason and I were discussing about the career path for architects. And it just kind of went from there. And the business Architect Club has come from a real strong desire, and a very pure desire, to prevent red projects. Because a lot of the projects that do fail very rarely fail because of technology. Majority of, as you know, majority of projects will fail because there are decisions, or there's reluctance to make decisions, or there are bigger things going on. And one of the things that my friend Francis Pinder says a lot is, with architecture, he sees it as, it's easy enough to put a solution in, but then once that solution can't be changed, that's when you need an architect, because you've got to slot things in and join things together around this thing that can't be changed. And I thought that was a fantastic way of describing it. It really inspired me. And that was quite a recent thing he said, actually. But but it's true. It's very true. So the Architect Club was born to create a home, to be a place where people who are consultants now can aspire to go and work in the future, and bring that bigger picture problem solving, advisory and support to customers who are perhaps struggling to be ready for Salesforce, or are struggling with too many contractors gone in and fiddled around with things and just created a mess. And to deal with legacy orgs. Salesforce is 20 years old now. There's a lot more legacy orgs out there that need a revamp, and businesses change all the time. So this is all about creating a great environment for the 9.2 million new jobs that are coming in by 2026 to actually grow and thrive and create sensible solutions that last. So that's what the Architect Club is all about.
I can see a lot of passion coming through, a lot of energy, a lot of passion. You mentioned that you had your second bout of cancer that scuppered your CTA journey.
Yeah.
How's that been for you, health-wise? How have you been?
Am I allowed to swear?
Much as you want.
It's been really shitty. Cancer doesn't care what you're doing. In fact, no illness that affects you on your day-to-day life cares about what you're doing in your life. They don't care that I'm doing Ladies Be Architect. It's my body, I was first diagnosed with cancer when I was 29, and I was absolutely furious about it, really furious, because I was like, I shouldn't be here. Everywhere I went was full of like older people, and but what we're finding over the years is that it's actually affecting more younger people now. So I now feel a lot less isolated, but at the beginning it was very hard because it was stage 3. It was in lymph nodes. It wasn't a joke. It was like, we've got to get you in for chemo immediately, and then we've got to get rid of this lump. So, and at that point I wasn't doing that much in the community. I was just working. But I was very well looked after. I was working in fact, I got diagnosed with cancer about 3 days after I'd signed the paperwork to join. I just handed my notice in at Capgemini, and I had just accepted the job and signed the paperwork at Financial Force. And then I found myself having to phone Financial Force and say, yeah, hi, I'm starting in like 2 weeks. Well, I've got some news for you. And he phoned me back. He said, I'm going to ring you back in 10 minutes. He rang me, the HR director then phoned me back, and he's like, Gemma, everything's fine. You're covered. You just join us and you just do whatever you feel you can, and we will look after you. And there was all the benefits. They just paid me. They looked after me. They helped me and helped me make sure that I didn't take on too much, because they'd figured me out straight away that I will take on a lot. And often to the detriment of my own health and sanity. I will often put that to one side and just focus. So they knew that, and they took responsibility for making sure that I didn't they saved me from myself, if you like, or protected me from myself while I was there. So that grew an intense sense of loyalty towards them, because they did look after me, and I ended up staying there 3.5 years, which is the longest I've ever worked anywhere. That's just because I like variety, and my career progressed quite fast because I learned fast. And so when I was diagnosed again in 2018, I was like, oh, for God's sake, what is going on here? And we just missed a little bit. But this time the doctor said, you know, we can't leave it there. You know, you've got to have a mastectomy. And I said, fine, you're doing both then. So that was what I called my upgrade. And I did get off quite light then, because I had this massive surgery. 10 hours I was in there. I was really sliced up to bits. There's a description on my blog of what operation I had, but you know, it felt like as soon as that was done, it was like, right, here's some tablets and off you go, well done. And I was like, oh, right, okay. But I still live with this fear that, like, what, even once the cancer's gone, people go, like, even family and friends were going, but you're all right now. And I was like, but you're not in your head, because you've been through an incredibly traumatic experience. But my problem is that I didn't see it as a traumatic experience at the time. I'm wiser now, but at the time I was like, this is just happening to me, and I've just got to get on with it and just get through it so that I can come out the other side and carry on with what I was doing. And so when it hit me again last year and I had started a business, I was absolutely devastated. Because I felt like the business was finally was starting to pick up momentum. We had clients that were interested. You know, the Salesforce totally behind us. A lot of support from them at varying levels. And I was just like, why is this happening again? But then so they sent me for a scan, and when I came back from the scan, I'll never forget the phone call when he said, right, we do need to say that, you know, it has gone into your skeleton. And I said, right, skeleton, what do you mean? And I said, can you list the areas? And he just went sternum, femur, upper tibia, your spine, and he just rattled off all these areas. And he said, and that's why we say it's the skeleton. So I was like, right, so it's everywhere. And in lymph nodes as well. And he said, I'm happy because it's not in your organs yet. And so that was a bit of comfort. So he put me on some pretty heavy hormone tablets, which I was very fortunate to have because they're not available on the NHS. But I felt like trash all the way through, like really tired, moody, dry, hot flushes, just having to cope with that and the mental anguish of it all, because ultimately when someone gives you that kind of news, you then got to start thinking about your future or lack of future. And I'm a mother. My daughter is almost 10. She's going to be 10 in a couple of weeks. I'm a business owner. I have things that I'm passionate about, that I want to continue to lead the thoughts on and to encourage Salesforce a bit more. So now it felt like my whole world had just crashed, like dropped to the floor. And I was crying when I got off the phone. My dad came in and saw me like crying, and it wasn't like this kind of crying. I know I sound emotional because it's coming, I'm kind of reliving it at the moment, but I was on the floor and I was screaming. And my dad comes in and he's like, what's up? And I said, I've just spoken to Dr. Shah, and I'd written down all the areas he'd said the cancer was in. I just gave it to my dad, and my dad just burst into tears, and we just cried and held each other. And then I had to go on a work call, and it was a client who was not very forgiving. The client was angry because of the delivery model that was being used, and I was having to deliver to that model because I was subcontracting, and I knew that it wasn't the right approach for the client, but I had to do it anyway because I was subcontracting and I had to do it in that way. So I get on the phone with this client, I'm trying to explain to her, you know, these are the best practices for loading your data. This, I can get you a data template. And she's just like, you told me 3 months ago you'd do this. And I went, yeah, I think I said it in passing. You know, I just couldn't even think straight. I had a fog in my brain. And I said, yeah, I'm sorry, I said that in passing. I will do that for you today. And she's like, you better. And I was just shocked at being, first of all, being spoken to so disrespectfully, but at the same time, she didn't know what was going on in my life. But that was when I think I really started to feel the pressure. I was just like, you know what? I feel like I just want to go and hide somewhere right now, but I can't. I've got to do this project. I've got to run this business. My sales guy's on the phone going, Gem, can you talk to this client, please? I need you. I need your pre-sales expertise. And there was no one, you know, getting someone else to do it would mean having to spend £100 plus per hour to get a contractor to do it. So it felt like the walls were all closing in. Does that make sense, Pei? And that's never really gone away. Like, it's never gone away at all. And it is a big, I feel very vulnerable right now, but it's also really good to get this out because I'm not alone. There are so many other people out there who are dealing with these challenges, and it feels so lonely sometimes. Because ultimately the buck stops with you. If you own your own business, the buck stops with you. And if you've got cancer and can't focus all the time and you can't be 100%, you can't lead, you can't steer, you can't direct. It's harder to make decisions, especially when you have bad news. I'm a year on now from that third diagnosis, and I'm starting to make peace with my future because I now realise that I could be a lot more sick than I am right now. However, in November, when I received the news that the cancer had gone into my liver and I would have to start chemotherapy, that was the point again. That was the point where I said to my team, guys, I need to go down to 3 days a week. I can't. And I need a succession plan. I had a succession plan. It was all set up. And I needed some support from the team, and I felt bad about that. I felt really bad about asking them to step up, you know, because that's not what they signed up for. But then this cancer's not what I signed up for, and it all backfired. And I learned so much about people and the way that people respond to this kind of thing, because nobody likes talking about cancer, nobody likes talking about death. But death is something that we all have to deal with in our lives. And ultimately, we are all going to be dead one day, all of us. So I think it's really important that we actually take a step back and think, you know, because people who are terminally ill, a lot of the time they don't tell you. I mean, certainly in my case, they've told me they don't know how long I've got. I just got to get on with it. So I'm in the same position as all of you. I don't know when I'm going to die. I just know that I'm a bit further up the queue than you guys are. And it can be quite isolating. Sometimes I can feel quite alone. I can sit in a room full of people and see all these lovely, healthy people who feel great, who feel able to stand up and have conversations with other people. And actually, sometimes I can't. I feel so sick that I have to go and sit and lay at the back of the room, or, you know, I can only handle short conversations at a time because I get so tired. And it's so frustrating because I still have so much to contribute to the world. I still have so much that I want to do. And I've been completely cock-blocked, for want of a better word. There's just this barrier in the way of everything. And what I'm trying to figure out in my own head now is how to stop pushing back against the barrier and actually just ride the wave, do what I can, think about how to delegate more successfully, and actually look at how I'm hiring as well. Look at the people I'm surrounding myself with. There's a lot of people out there who, you know, cancer is not a visible disease, unless you're having chemo, as you can see. So it's very easy for people to forget that you're as ill as you are. And I've been treated quite poorly in this last year by a few people who have said that I've not been pulling my weight. And and they've not seen the hours I've done late at night when I've been writing white papers or designing tweets or designing, writing documents, or, you know, writing procedures and doing the company wiki to try and give everybody some direction and, you know, to basically set us all up for as much success as we can. They've not seen all of that. All they've seen is that since April last year, they've had to work twice as hard. And I'm sorry for that. And, you know, every day I'm sorry for that. And that's been a big point of contention for me, is just constantly feeling sorry all the time. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I'm not 100%. I'm so sorry that I can't join this call because I feel sick. I'm so sorry that my brain is completely clouded because I'm full of poisonous chemicals and they mess your brain up, because they really do. And I can't think straight. I can't hold my thoughts. And I'm so sorry that we're stuck here trying to get this company off the ground, which, you know, is doing actually quite well. Company's doing quite well, especially for the youth of it, for its youth, sorry. We've done really well. We've really achieved quite a lot. And certainly from a revenue perspective, I'm very happy with it. It's just, you gotta deal with all that other stuff as well. So, yeah.
Sounds like you've had a lot on your shoulders for so very long. You mentioned when you were at Blue Wolf and there was a lot of support. Running a business, even without cancer, is mind-bogglingly difficult. And it's like one of those things, like the, what do they call it? The armchair football people who start yelling at the football game on TV. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And they're sitting there not having gone through the blood, sweat, tears, and sacrifice of the people who are playing. And I feel that that's the same with people who run the business. And there's just so much, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, just complaints and, you know, people like Elon Musk, why do they do this? Why don't they do this? And, you know, they aim so much at all these people, and yet they are not the ones who understand, who can understand. And so, you know, I've run business before, and I, not even being sick, I can tell you the stress, sleepless night, wondering about the next day, if you're gonna make payroll, can you make collections, and did what I do, the delivery, was it done properly? Was it done well? What do people think of me? There's all of these things, plus for you being poorly and, you know, just having to deal with the big C. It must, I can't even begin to imagine how you're functioning, just, you know, just carrying all this weight on your shoulders. Owning a business is not easy.
No.
What kind of support do you have?
Medication. I've got a sweetie tin downstairs full of sweeties. No, a lot of them. A lot of the support that I've had has actually been self-driven, because I decided to subscribe to some self-help books, and I listen to those on Audible, and they help me. I've got a lot of support from my team who've stuck with me over the last couple of years. You know, it's interesting because, like, the people that I have trusted have come through. And I've also trusted the wrong people. And that, I think that happens in any business scenario, any situation where you are running something. You really have to trust people, which means you have to really hire quite thoroughly and really investigate what kind of people you're bringing into that business, because, you know, I've historically been very easily manipulated by narcissism, and as a result, I found people with those traits very charming and very easy to work with and very driven, and have got the right idea on what to do, but then the poison comes out in the back sometimes, and that's when I've ended up going down the wrong route and trusting the wrong people. And right now I'm in a great space in terms of that. I'm surrounded by people who have empathy, who I trust, who get things done. I sometimes have to steer them slightly differently, and I sometimes have to push back, like, Gemma, can you jump on this call? No. Or, Gemma, can you just write me 2 lines that explains this? And I'm like, no, here's a blog, here's a thing, go read it and write your own email. You're a big girl, big boy. Now off you go, do that. You don't need me to do that. And that's helped me as well, because that's helped me to show the trust that I have in them and the appreciation I have for them. So I'm in a great place at the moment in terms of my staff and the people that work in my organisation. They're all lovely people. I've not got a bad word to say about any of them, and the fact that they've stuck with me for 2-3 years, says a lot as well. So that's keeping me going and keeping me motivated, is that home is building. And I suppose from the other side as well, I mean, as you may know, I'm a single parent. I'm very happily alone, happily single. The idea of a man kicking around my house right now, I couldn't imagine anything worse. I'm like, my God, this is my space, I've just decorated it. You're going to want to come in and wreck everything. No. So on the other side, though, it is hard having cancer as a single person. But my parents are here for me. They live 5 miles away. We have the dog. I have my cats. Like, I'm a proper cat lady. So I've got my Lucy and Steve, and they're my little familiars, if you like, my little black cats. And when my daughter's with me, it has been challenging because she's just reaching that pre-teen age. So we're getting a lot of moods and we're getting a lot of defiance. But my mum phoned up a carer company a couple of weeks ago and arranged for me to have a carer come in for an hour every morning to help me kick the child out the door for school. And that's been so helpful, because sometimes children, they need to be told by someone who isn't their parent.
I totally identify. I feel like I'm the only one who's getting out of bed in the morning and getting into bed at night at the right time. I mean, us grown-ups know if you don't get enough sleep, that just totally ruins your day. You don't have enough rest, and you multiply that for a young child. So I'm trying to be on the ball with the bedtime and waking up, and I'm the evil person. So again, just parenting by itself is hard. Single parenting, is just like multiplying the factors of the hard stuff you have to do. So parenting is already difficult. So your daughter's almost 10 and my daughter is also around the same age, and we know what comes with pre-puberty and all of that, and all of that coming in, plus she's dealing with you, and
she knows she's going to lose her mum, and all the while I'm doing this business stuff, she's missing out on time with me, that very limited time with me. So there are things I'm doing to try and curb that. So as you may know, we did the GoFundMe last year, and I could not believe the response to that. It was absolutely phenomenal. So I've still got a lot of that, and we're actually planning on what activities we want to do this year. So I want to take her away on a girls' trip to Mallorca, where she can just play in the sun for a little while, and we can both rest. But there are other measures that I can take, like reducing my work hours, hiring sensibly to cover the stuff that I do. And there's always something I want to contribute as well. There's still going to be stuff I want to do in the Salesforce world. I still want to go out and do talks. I still want to go out and interact with people if I've got the energy. The energy right now is my biggest currency. And I have to spend it really wisely and really carefully. on things and really prioritize. But again, it's still stuff I'm doing for myself, and that's really, really important, because I also want to show Molly that it's really important to use your skills, and that there is a point of going to school. She's not just going there because of the law, she's going there to learn so that she can find something to do in her future that fulfills her life, and I'm trying to show her that I've got that. I'm very privileged to be doing my hobby for a job, kind of. But it's important, but it is taking time away from her, and she needs a mum. We have such a close relationship, but the getting her out in the morning and doing bedtime, we all know as parents that's really stressful anyway, but it was starting to affect our relationship, because I'm just stood over her going, get to school, shoes, go brush your teeth, have you brushed your hair, come on love, let's go, no, and I'm just stood there nagging at her. And that's not how I want to spend the last few years of my life, raising my child, or however long I've got. But now it's in my liver. As soon as they said it was in my liver, I was like, oh, I'm fucked now, ain't I? And that's actually the attitude society has, because that's what the media does with cancer. When you see someone with cancer on TV, you see them go through treatment and come out the other side sometimes, like in the soaps and in documentaries and stuff. But you don't see how people actually, it's not portrayed in the media that actually there is stuff that you can still contribute. And that just because you've got cancer and it's terminal doesn't mean that's it, she's dead now, that's it, we just sit and wait for her to die. And that's the natural human in the natural human response to this. I mean, I remember when my friend Laura was passed. Did you know Laura Walker? She was a beautiful.
I know that that's been memorial for her, and there's the award, I think, that Amanda had, so her name kind of lives on. So I know of her, and I know how much a lot of people think of her.
Laura was a very special soul, and she was always full of jokes, and she was as irreverent as I was. Some of our text messages that we exchanged were just brilliant. She gave me a gift. She gave me a recipe for a specific type of ham that you can have at Christmas, because I said, I need something from you to take into my life, and she was like, I don't know what to do. And then we started chatting one day about doing Christmas dinners and things, and she said, she said, I've got to do this ham because there'll be a riot otherwise. And I was like, for her family. So I was like, oh, can you give me the recipe and we'll try it here? So now every year I make it, and that's how I memorialise Laura in a way. But when Laura had a very different experience to me. She was very ill during her chemo. Her white blood cells were very, very low, and she got sepsis, and that's a huge risk with chemo. I've been very lucky. I haven't had any infections. I've basically sailed through it by comparison to some people. Yeah, I felt really, really sick the last 2 weeks, but they've given me steroids. Woohoo! But Laura really struggled with it, and I remember even thinking to myself, oh, now that Laura's got it in her liver, but she decided not to proceed with treatment. So she decided she was going to retire and to enjoy the rest of her life, and she was in a great position to do that, and I'm glad that she was able to do that. Sorry, I went off on a tangent, but yeah, I've lost my train of thought. I'm sorry, Pei.
It's okay. You don't have to answer this question. Do you have a ham recipe or something like that you'd like people to?
Oh, right. Yeah, I can find the text messages from Laura.
No, I mean from you.
From me.
How would you like?
Legacy.
Yeah.
My legacy is seeing Salesforce take the Architect Success Program from strength to strength, because I know I influenced that. And I influenced that by creating a demand. And all I did was just say stuff that everybody knew and wasn't saying. And that caused Salesforce to invest probably millions in this program that's going to make a new career path for people. So that's my legacy. My legacy is also all of the new people who have been on my free training course and are learning and getting jobs. My legacy is a book that is coming out later this year, that I'm writing at the moment, with a writer, because who has time, you know? But she's doing a great job of writing it in my tone, and we're writing it together and collaborating on it. So that's going really well. And my legacy is Molly, and it's for Molly. It's to show Molly that just to pass on my values to Molly, which is truth, honesty, you know, doing stuff that you love, not just sailing through a job because you want to get paid. You know, your life is, people talk about work-life balance, and actually I think, and some people see work as a means to an end. They'll go there 9 to 5, come home, because what's important is family, and that's absolutely important. But what about you and your individuality? What about what makes you tick? What about your other identities, your other roles that you have? You know, I'm Gemma, Molly's mum. I'm also Eileen and Andy's daughter. I'm also the CEO and founder of the Architect Club. I'm also founder of Ladies the Architects. I've also got my own personal stuff that I do. I'm a friend to people. You know, the hardest thing for me has been trying to keep on top of all that. I'm rubbish at replying to text messages because I get so many. I think, geez, how, you know, have I actually got the mental capacity to sit and go through all these messages and respond to them all? So that's, you know, and there are things that you can't, if you're spinning plates, you're always going to drop one or two. And my legacy for Molly is around that self-acceptance and knowing that, you know, she can do whatever she puts her mind to if she just gets the resource. You know, she can go and find the resources to do it herself. And I suppose that attitude is what I want to leave behind. If people find that inspiring, that's great. If people find that really pretentious, then fine, you know, that's your opinion. So
I think you're doing such a great job of all these things that you've had to do, and it's just, I'm in awe. Like I said, you know, running a business, being a parent, single parent, running a business, plus all of this and everything else. And you know, the fact that you've got your free course and the way that you're inspiring others, and the Architect track, and just telling people and just shining a light on anyone and everyone around you. It's just been amazing. So
it's a lot, actually, when you list it like that. It's a lot. It's one big massive hurricane.
It is. And I think for you, when you're kind of in it and you're just trying to push through, you don't see. So I see it, and I think a lot of people see it, and a lot of people are grateful for you in so many ways. So you mentioned that energy is your currency at the moment, and you also mentioned before we started recording call that you've had, you know, quite a low few days last week, and you're on some steroids that's lifted your mood up this week, and that you want to spend that time and energy doing the stuff that you love. And I'm feeling really grateful that you've spent, you know, an hour with me, a bit more. So I want to be respectful and give you back, you know,
I just love talking to you, and I love talking, you know, there are so many people in this ecosystem that I would love to see you meet, who share similar ideas and really care and are passionate about stuff like this and are so kind. I mean, you've only got to walk around the middle of San Francisco during Dreamforce to make friends with people who are they just like you unconditionally. You know, everybody's nice until they're not. But, you know, it's such a warm and welcoming environment. And people say Salesforce is a cult. It does have characteristics of a sect or religion, as does football. But I think any environment or any community that encourages people to find deep skills within themselves and bring them out to the surface, whilst celebrating those successes and achievements and creating friendship and smiles, there's no harm in that, is there? And also giving back to the world at the same time.
No, and the fact that you are still so passionate right now, just tells me how deeply in this cult you are. And I think if this is a cult, right? I've spoken to so many people on the podcast, and it just comes through that it's not just a product, not just a company, but the people that it creates. And Ohana basically has creates so much meaning for so many people, and for you to amplify a lot of that which you've received has been amazing to watch. And I'm really grateful that you've spent the time with me today, and I hope that we can do more, but on the Twitter space that we've been doing, so that'll be great.
Yep.
Be very cool to see. So
more of those.
So I thank you from the bottom of my heart, Gemma, and thank you.
And thanks for being here for me and for listening.